Hello, BookTube. Well, it's week 4 of the Pentathon, which is an event created by Matt at Paperback Junkie, and is the easiest flippin' read-along you'll ever do, according to him. And he devised the winning formula, which is read the stuff he likes. And he gave 5 categories, 1 per week. And it's been a blast. It's been just a blast. The first week was something by Edgar Rice Burroughs. The second week was H.P. Lovecraft. Third week was Robert E. Howard. And now we're doing the fourth week, which is something noir, a noir work. And I found a book just by random chance at the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston that I knew immediately that I saw it. It was Berlin Noir by Philip Kerr. I knew immediately this was going to be what I would use. And these are this is an anthology of the first 3 novels starring Bernie Gunther, who is Kerr's great character. He's a retired policeman, a private investigator in 1930s Berlin. It starts in 1930s Berlin. And rereading the first one made me think about what we think about when we're talking about noir, when we're talking about hard-boiled fiction. Of course, the other thing I thought about is a great work. It will take you 20 minutes to read, and every single one of you who's ever read a murder mystery should read it. It's the Simple Art of Murder that lays out the rules for a lot of stuff. It's just an amazing book. I talked about it once on this channel. If I can remember the video, I will call it out. But in that essay, in that great essay, we're told a lot of the characteristics of a noir hero, of the hero of a noir novel, who, down these mean streets must go a man who is not himself mean. He must not be a prude, but he must not be a satyr. He must be honorable. He must not be over-intelligent. He must not rely on luck. He must not be a snob. He must be handy, reliable, not ostentatious. In other words, he must be the exact opposite of the amateur dandy sleuth characterized by Lord Peter Wimsey, and then Dorothy Sayers novels. He must be a very much American figure. And one of the geniuses of the Bernie Gunther novels is that he is not American. Philip Kerr translates the whole of the noir, hard-boiled world to the 20th century and to a totally different milieu. And I can't help but think he had the Simple Art of Murder in mind, because when you're talking about mean streets, they don't get much meaner than Nazi Germany in the 1930s, where you have armed young thugs roaming around the streets, shaking their donation cans, demanding money from everyone, watching to see if you salute the 20,000 times you need to salute when you're in the street, and kicking you if you don't. And you say, well, okay, I'm the foreman of a manufacturing warehouse. I'm 50 years old. I have 3 daughters. I'm putting them through school. I go to work every day. I have 45 people who report to me for work. If a young man kicks me in the street because I don't do something he wants, I'll call the police. But no, the police are the Gestapo. And if you object or strike him, he'll shoot you. And the brute force is the law. Now, the world has changed and has trapped every one of those kinds of people in it, including poor Bernie Gunther, who has never been a bon vivant. He's a hangdog type of character. Well worth your acquaintance to meet. And there's a wonderful scene at the beginning of the first book that I want to read you that epitomizes what I'm talking about. He's out and about in the evening, driving west on the Leipziger Strasse. I met a torchlight parade of brown shirt legions as it marched south down Wilhelmstrasse, and I was obliged to get out of my car and salute the passing standard. Not to have done so would have been to risk beating. I guess there were others like me in that crowd, our right arms extended like so many traffic policemen, doing it just to avoid trouble and feeling a bit ridiculous. Who knows? But come to think of it, political parties were always big on salutes in Germany. The Social Democrats had their clenched fist raised high above the head. The Bolsheviks in the KPD had their clenched fist raised at shoulder level. The centrists had their 2-fingered pistol-shaped hand signal with a thumb cocked. And the Nazis had the fingernail inspection. I can remember when we used to think it was all rather ridiculous and melodramatic, and maybe that's why none of us took it seriously. And here we all were now, saluting with the best of them. Crazy. I mean, that never changes in the course of all of these novels. You got these first 3 books, and they were made in this one volume by Penguin, and Berlin Noir did well. In bookstores, customers would come in and ask for this book. Even though there were no other Bernie Gunther novels being written, there were no other Bernie Gunther novels in print, this sold well as a backlist item. It had a life that was tenacious enough so that eventually the Bernie Gunther novels started appearing in very nice-looking hardcovers, 1 a year. Really, a really smart decision on the part of the author's publisher to swing behind this series and this character, trusting that he would become beloved, and he did. Those novels did really well. I reviewed the last of them. It was a very bittersweet feeling. I reviewed the last Bernie Gunther novel. But I've loved them all. I was turned on to them by the mystery Malvin of Open Letters Monthly, Irma Heldman, a legendary figure in her own right, who's loved Bernie Gunther novels from the beginning and who told all of us at Open Letters that this is the real deal, that you will really like these novels. And they are really good. They travel in time. These first 3 are Bernie Gunther in the 1930s, but then the war starts, and the Nazis become progressively more evil, more coarse, more violent. And he still has to make his way. He can't leave, doesn't want to leave. Until the very end of the series, we don't see him outside of Germany. And it's neat to see that he's not a compromised figure. He's not being taken into... The Nazis often employ him to solve mysteries. And we see that they don't do that just because he doesn't make waves. They don't do that because he's some sort of low-key collaborator. They do that for a reason that Kerr doesn't stress, but that is present very much in every book, which is that Bernie Gunther is a really good detective. He's really good at what he does. Not a question of paperwork. Like all the best fictional detectives, whether they're noir or not, he notices things. He puts 2 and 2 together. He comes up with good working theories, much better and much faster than anybody else around him. That's always neat to see. That element is present in every one of the Bernie Gunther books. And I'm reading the first one now, but I'm going to finish. I'm going to read this. I don't think I have any of those beautiful hardcovers that I mentioned. I used to have a whole shelf of them, and I thought, how often do you reread these things? I regret that, but one's shelf space is not infinite. But I want to end this week of Pentathon with a strong recommendation. Just, if you have not read these books, I strongly recommend them. Berlin Noir will be at your library. This collection will be at your library. But I'd be willing to bet a lot of the later books would be too. There were, I don't even know, 10, maybe 11 later Bernie Gunther novels, and they're all wonderful. All in their way are wonderful. I think the most ambitious one was Prussian Blue, but ambition when it comes to noir novels is almost a hindrance. So you can really start anywhere, and it doesn't matter where you start. You don't have to start with this book because, again, as in the best murder mysteries, the author is well aware that he will be gaining followers, especially towards the end of his career. Philip Kerr lived long enough to see himself as an incredibly popular author and to see Bernie Gunther as the star in the literature of detective fiction. That's wonderful. I would have hated it if he'd died after this book with as a cult following, but not as a general following. So he was well aware in all of those later novels that he was introducing this character in this world to people who had never heard of it before. So you can jump in anywhere, and I strongly urge you to do that. These are wonderful, wonderful books. And they stay true to the noir ethos. In the noir ethos, the hero must never win big. The hero must never triumph. The hero must never be a philosophical warrior. There must always be a strong, overriding, pragmatic element to the hero. But we must admire the hero anyway. And that works. Kerr works that into these books extremely well, even though they're not in big city America. So that is my noir entry for Pentathon. A strong recommendation for you to read the Bernie Gunther novels. Someone once recommended them to me, and she was right. So I'm passing that along. And that leaves next week. We have one more week of Pentathon. And next week is, for me, the biggest challenge of them all, even H.P. Lovecraft. I can hold my nose and think of England. but next week is going to be the biggest challenge of all, because next week, Paperback Junkie wants us to read a comic book. And I got the strong impression from his original video that he means an individual comic book, not a graphic novel. And as I've mentioned on this channel, I don't typically read individual comic books anymore. The few that I've read in recent months have been so awful that they've given me no incentive to go back and reread and read any others. And there's no current comic book series that I follow week by week. Nevertheless, when a really good flippin' readathon comes along, you have to be willing to bite the bullet. That's the whole part of the fun, is that you don't know what you're going to find. You don't know how it's going to expand your reading and how much enjoyment you might get without thinking that you will. Didn't happen with H.P. Lovecraft. But no readathon is perfect, except for mine. But even so, next Saturday is the end of Pentathon, and it is a comic book. You have to read and discuss a comic book. And I'm determined that I am not going to take the easy way out and do a graphic novel. So instead, New Comic Book Day is Wednesday. I am going to go out on Wednesday and buy an individual comic book. I might buy a graphic novel too, an omnibus or a collection of some kind, and that I will talk about. But I'm also going to buy a comic book, and I'm not going to talk about it on Wednesday. I'm going to wait and talk about it on Saturday. And if I don't like it, which is extremely likely, I'm going to blame Paperback Junkie. So that's my my Pentathon update here. I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.